Ahoy, everyone. This is David Eugene Perry with my continuing series of interviews with clients, colleagues, friends, and just people that I think are making a difference in the world as we get from what I call the great pause of 2020 into the great recovery of this year we're in now, 2021. And I'm delighted to be in the Zoom room with a colleague, someone I got to know just in the last year, who is truly one of the smartest people I have come to know because of COVID. Please welcome Matt Skallerud. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's I love that intro, and it's you and I have spent some wonderful interactions and time together over the last year.
And we've never met in person.
No, it's funny though. I feel like I know you because we were talking about before. I know how I got to know you first, and it was actually not LinkedIn. It was through Twitter, and I was watching you. You stood up because you treated Twitter like it was there was a human being on the other side, and you treated it very human as far as like the way you collaborated. You show interest in others, and I was like, wow, who is this guy? He seems to get it, and I really like what he's posting.
Well, thank you. I'll put that on a sampler and hang it outside my door. And of course, the miracle of Zoom is I heard about you first through David Kleiman, a colleague who is also one of the smartest people I know, and he said you got to know this guy. So the connections, even during COVID, when we physically haven't seen each other, continue to be made. Now, you're talking to me from a snowy Allentown, Pennsylvania today. I'm
Yep.
talking to you from a sunny but somewhat chilly Palm Springs. Talk to me about your latest initiative because
Yeah.
you really have coalesced an interesting cabinet, a brain trust of LGBTQ plus professionals, specifically in the marketing and communication space. So, what you
Yeah.
said about Twitter just now means a great deal to me. Talk to me about your group and what's it called.
Yeah, it's called LGBTQ PopOn, and we actually originally came up with the idea and concept of something called PopUp, and kind of like a pop-up event. It was physical in nature, and we were going to. The theme is LGBTQ advertising, marketing, PR, and new media. The new media, opens the door for influencers, podcasters, all of it. But it was a way for all of us to kind of be able to get together, not only to network, but also for creating the idea of workshops and maybe even being a part of larger conferences. And so it was launching in New York in March of last year, right when COVID started. So
Right.
so of course, we just kind of put everything on pause. But we knew we had to do something because we had over 750 people RSVP for this event, and I could tell you I've hosted a variety of different events, and in the past I've never had that kind of interest, and it was really strong. It was agencies and influencers and corporate America. They all wanted to be a part of all this. So over
How
time,
long
we
did you how long did you have to go from 3D to this with that
Yeah, and so
conference?
it was over the summer because people kept asking me, when are you gonna bring back pop-up? You have something there, we need to do it. I had to push back and say there is no way anybody's going to want to talk about doing an in-person event, and they still don't, even now, January 2021. But I started realizing, because over time we created this thing called the Ilovegay Today show last year, and it was just, these things were just, let's just see what happens, and it's setting up a camera, then two cameras, and utilizing Zoom, and just doing some interviews with people we found interesting out there. And over time, we started realizing, and we started incorporating that same technology towards putting presentations out there, so that instead of doing workshops at a conference, we were actually, starting to migrate that direction. And I realized, wow, I think we could bring pop-up into the virtual world as well. But it really, actually, it's, thank goodness for everything that happened in that sense, because Pop On um, is far higher level. It's going to be far greater than anything we had thought it would pop up, and it's
And do you
because,
think that is because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no,
Do
no, it's
you
because we're
think,
pulling people together. It's all about
well,
collaborating.
yeah, I mean, Zoom existed before COVID, but I
Yeah,
don't know about you, but I can count on one hand how many times I used it. And then because we were forced to use it, we actually used not only relationships we already have, but like relationships you and I have. We've developed completely in this virtual space in a very intense and I think focused and organic way.
yeah. And it's just interesting how it all has come together. And, Pop On is actually more defined, not as so much as networking, and more of actually almost like a think tank, bringing minds together from all of our worlds, to be able to collaborate through Zoom to discuss and take a deeper dive into topics that are specific in the advertising, marketing, and especially we've got a lot of suggestions for things that are really relevant for where we're at today. And, with the recession and politics the way they are and so forth, there's a lot of discussions to be had. And so that was the idea, but we launched it with a group of panelists, a group of podcasters, to really take a deeper dive into their world, because that podcasting also took off in a huge way in 2020. And so the question is, what's working and how do you make a business out of it?
Well, and so there's the question for you. Before, COVID, this was your business. How did COVID change not only your business, meaning what type of clients you had, but how you connected with them? And once we quote unquote get past COVID, whatever that means, what is it going to look like for you?
Yeah, well, the business stayed the same, which is helping companies just figure out how to get their message out there and target and reach a very specific demographic, their customer in the LGBT space. So we've continued to do that. We used to work a lot with tourism and destinations, but that has fallen off. The good news is that one of our strongest destination clients, which Visit Britain, they're coming back for 2021. So it took a year, but things are happening. But in the meantime, we actually did a lot of work in the health space last year. So a lot of and not really COVID related, just STD prevention, HIV prevention. A lot of those organizations were thriving during this time for whatever reason, and they really needed to try to help get the word out through mobile apps, through social media. And so we've been doing a lot of that. These videos have just simply kind of kept us out there and relevant, so that we were so we don't have sponsors in the videos. We don't sell anything. We don't really promote. All we simply do is keep ourselves out there during this time. But keep talking. It's a very business to business style of interviews, and that has converted and brought more and more awareness and new clients to the table as well.
Well, and I'm not just blowing smoke. I think that I mean this truly. I've been impressed with the quality of your videos because, to use the word that you used about me, which was so nice, they were human and connected. And it's about keeping visible. I remember the first 3 weeks of COVID, I just felt gobsmacked. But my instant reaction was, all right, people still need to know that people are there. They may not want to hire our PR services or our video services right now, but at some point, they're going to say, I need to know that they're there. So keeping visible to me was a huge part of 2020. Do you think that as we continue into 2021, this keeping visible will result in a hybrid that we now beginning to realize the potential of? I mean, I tend to watch the cruise industry because I love ships. So I remember 3 months ago, it was, the first cruises are going to be scheduled February 2021, and then March, and then April, and now really nothing's happening before September. What's your timeline for getting back to whatever this, I hate the cliche, new normal is going to be?
Yeah. Well, and what's fun is that cliche, because it's a natural tendency for all of us. Everybody wants to get back to normal. We know it's going to be a new normal, but everybody's trying to figure out what that's going to look like. That's the exciting part, is trying to figure out what it would look like. But I think around this summer is when we're going to have real strong sense of when things are becoming back to a new normal, where we can be out and engaged with each other in the physical world again and go to restaurants. And so it just feels like things are moving in that direction, where summer is wishful thinking. Maybe it'll be fall. But there's going to be a lot of things different into 2022. And so that's the interesting part, is to kind of be able to have ideas about what that might look like.
In our last few minutes, talk to me about what was the low point for you, either personally or professionally, of 2020, and also then the high point.
Yeah, I think the low point was the same as for everyone, which is in March, when everything kind of fell off a cliff. I had absolutely no idea where things were going to go. And so, everything did stop. We had some actually really good client work that we were just getting better and better at, and we felt good about it. And then everything had to just be put on an immediate stop. So for pretty much that month of April, we really didn't know what was going to happen. But and that was probably the lowest in terms of just, I started to see that on a personal level, I started seeing things go in a different direction, not because I started gardening again and doing all these things that I had time for, because all of a sudden, I think a lot of us have gone through that. Cooking and gardening were the two big highlights of 2020. And so that would be I would say that was probably the high points, was now, because I know that those are going to be back in my life moving forward, no matter how things transpire.
Yeah, it's funny. My husband, thankfully, is a good cook because otherwise I'd starve. I make coffee and martinis and reservations. That's pretty much it. He discovered that was his way of keeping sane and enjoyed it and started putting stuff out there. And for me, I realized that morning walks were something that, well, I could have done it all the time. But
Yeah,
then when it was our only form of safe exercise, became something now that I know will be something that I keep up all of my
yeah.
life.
I think those are nice things.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone in the non-LGBTQ world who is looking to reach the LGBTQ market in 2021? And advice specific to this post-COVID reality.
Yeah.
Besides the advice besides hiring you.
I know, I was going to say, it's funny because the typical advice at conferences is always for companies to do their homework, do research first, and so forth, and that'll always be valid, depending on the company, because some businesses feel like they have a good gut feel or instincts as far as who they should be reaching and then how, and then the question just becomes the specifics. How do you specifically do that? And so I think that's just a big part of any company, whether it's LGBT or otherwise, is that the first thing they're going to be able to do is figure out how can I reach who I need to reach, and how can I do it the most cost effective way. And most of them, that's why they almost always start out with Facebook, because Facebook makes it really easy for folks to jump in and try to do it themselves. And where we come into play is when companies figure that part out, but then they want to go beyond that, and that's where we come in.
Now, your first PopOn was really just terrific content. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What is the next offering?
Yeah, it's interesting because it looks like we're kind of going down two tracks, and so that one was nice because it showed people. It was good to create because then it gave people an idea of exactly what we were doing and building. But that one there is in the track, or the idea of more of a panel and bringing some experts together to get where they can be asked questions. So it's more traditional in that sense. And what we're going to do after the next one session is going to be more think tank slash virtual, where the virtual advisors, or at least a portion of them, can get together and tackle some really higher level topics. And so it won't just be 4 people being kind of showcased. It's going to be everyone being able to participate and dive in. And that's the best part about editing, is if we make these weird bloopers or go down some little rabbit hole and it would drive people crazy, we can just kind of weave those out and just really focus on the meat and potatoes of the conversation.
Right. Well, and of course, today we're doing this interview on the day when the first ever openly gay presidential cabinet member was confirmed. Now no longer Mayor Pete, but Secretary Pete. Maybe you can have him on a PopOn.
I thought that very thing today, but I would like to think that I'm there, but I don't think I'm there for him yet. So
well, we're gonna put it out there to the universe. Secretary Buttigieg, if you're listening, Matt's here.
What's interesting is that the big question. It's not a question to me, but it's interesting. How did I even know about that? My source was, because I spent time on Twitter for some of our accounts during the day, and of course, Twitter was all over it, whether it was the Victory Institute, HRC, and everyone else. So as soon as I opened Twitter this afternoon, it was all about Mayor Pete, and and it felt really good. But it's just interesting because when I looked on Facebook and LinkedIn, there was a few things about it, but really Twitter is the place where if you're into it, you really feel like you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening all around the world, really.
Yeah, and I agree, without getting too political, but why not for the moment? In the last 20 days, Twitter has been a somewhat safer space.
Oh, I'm not going to say I know what PTSD feels like. Maybe we all do and have some sort of collective. All I know is that I had no idea how tense things were up until the moment when all of a sudden Trump was then quieted and taken away from his Twitter and all the rest. And I was like, wow, this is the most calm, peaceful period of time. And it wasn't even through Twitter. It's just all the news that's about what he tweets that was just gone.
I swear, if I could, I would send flowers to the new White House press secretary. It's just like, oh my God, she's answering questions.
It's really a surreal feeling. And so, but we're all kind of going through this, I saw this picture that showed Obama, it was hope. And then it was, then it was Trump with hate. And then it was Biden with healing. And I think that was pretty accurate in the sense that we are definitely in a mode of healing right now.
Well, I'm going to look for that. And, Matt Skallerud, you've been someone who's been a great advocate for hope and healing this past year. I'm glad to have met you. And we are delighted to have you on the show. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, just I really look forward to collaborating not only with yourself, but with others out there that you and I have discovered over the last year that really understand the power of a lot of these mediums and want to kind of collectively, we're all going to kind of join hand in hand and get there together.
There we go. So singing Kumbaya together. It's David Eugene Perry and Matt Skallerud. We look forward to the next Pop On from Matt. Thank you, Matt. Ahoy.
Thanks again.